I was born on Pandium, a verdant agri-world of hymn and harvest. The recruiters came when I was 11. They spoke of honor, of rising above mere flesh. They did not say that to become more than human, you must first surrender what made you human. The trials were brutal, expected. Pain expected. Death expected. What I did not expect was the tedium after ascension, a life measured in inspections. 0400, weapons drill 4 hours, 0800, tactical sims 2 hours, 1000, meditation on the codex 1 hour, 1100, ritual cleansing of armor, day after day, year after year, perfection standardized into schedule, deviation equated with sin. Once, during the Bellicani purification, I saw a squad of guardsmen between engagements. They laughed in the dirt, shared stories, strummed a stringed thing welded from scraps. One slept and snored without shame. "Undisciplined," Brother Toron murmured in flat, perfect neutrality. "Human," I said. He tilted his helm, marble calm. "A weakness we have transcended, Brother Desius. Transcended or buried, the defect that becomes doctrine. In the Apothecarian, a routine gene seed audit found my catalepsian node operating at 97.6% instead of 98.2%. Negligible to a sane eye, to an ultramarine, a crack in a sanctum wall. Within acceptable parameters, said Apothecary Varro, eyes steady on his slate. But you will increase meditation by 30 minutes and report any involuntary unconsciousness. 3 weeks later, during a night fire exercise, I blinked for 1.7 seconds. Not long enough to fall. Long enough to drop my targeting efficiency by 12% on a single volley. In the Ultramarines, everything is noticed. Everything is archived. Brother Desius requires reconditioning, came the decree. Reconditioning is a polite word for dismantling a mind and tightening all the bolts before the spirit can rattle loose. Liturgy as hammer. A stone cell 8 by 8. A single illuminator that never slept. For 3 days I sat in perfect posture while servitors fed me through lines. On the 4th, Chaplain Cassius came, the skull helm a sermon in bone. Your body houses the gene seed of Robout Guilliman, he intoned. Do you understand the responsibility? I do, I said, my voice rusted from silence. Then explain your failure. There was no explanation acceptable to a creed that outlaws doubt, only atonement. 18 hours of recitation without water or rest, stimulants when the throat failed. Pain nodes at the temples when the mind drifted. Hypno-indoctrination between sessions. Histories where hesitation doomed brothers. Simulations where questions bled companies dry. The message was simple and total. Obedience saves, doubt kills. By the 3rd week, I no longer needed the shocks. My posture never wavered. My tongue could recite without the mind attached. They had scoured the surface clean. Deep below, in amber, a small thing still flickered, the boy from Pandium who once looked at the stars and wondered. After 40 days, I was declared fit for limited duties and assigned to the rear guard, a demotion no one named. Oh, they came in blue steel and measured evolution. The Primaris, products of Belisarius Call's refinements, stronger, faster, less bound by the rites. Time had fused into our bones. They knew the verses. They had not lived the centuries. During the blessing of arms before deployment, a Gravis warrior beside me, Brother Vexillian, anointed his bolter with exact, careless efficiency. The weapon functions regardless of blessing, he said, eyes on the mechanism. The machine spirit responds to maintenance, not prayer. I should have reported him. Instead, I weighed his words and hated myself for their gravity. The ritual ensures proper respect, I answered, the approved line. Reconditioning ensures proper respect, he replied at last, meeting my gaze. Does it not, brother Desius? He knew. The shame I had lacquered under compliance crawled like a brand. Chaplain Cassius drifted into view, and Vexillian's voice warmed at once with an impeccable litany, perfectly devout, almost mocking. That night I dreamed of Pandium's fields and woke with salt on my face. Parmenio fell silent. We descended in textbook codex formation, drop pods spearheading, flanks securing, reserves poised. Tyranid spore suggested a kraken splinter. By hour 27, patterns broke. The xenos retreated in ways their breed did not. We advanced into entrenchments not of chitin but of iron warriors. The Vox tore open. Ambush, crossfires, teleport, strikes into fallback lanes our doctrine prescribed. Captain Aemon commanded the flawless withdrawal the Codex requires. The traitors had studied the same scripture. "Captain," I said, breaching protocol, "they anticipate our doctrine. We must adapt. The Codex Astartes does not fail," he replied, voice cold. "Only application." On the tax slates, red icons bled across designated rally points. Vexillian's squad was encircled on a mining platform, munitions thin. Relief would come late or not at all. The thing preserved in amber cracked. "Servitor," I ordered softly, "transmit to Thunderhawk Gamma 3, Priority Alpha. Redirect to Platform Delta. Extract Squad Vexillian. Danger close fire missions. Coordinates incoming," the servitor acknowledged. On the slate, Gamma 3 turned like a hawk smelling blood. "What have you done?" Aemon asked, voice like vacuum. "Violated protocol," I said, removing my helm so he could see my eyes. "To save our brothers." "You have undermined the chain of command in battle," he said. "Capital offense." Reports cascaded. 2 Iron Warrior artillery nests annihilated. Gamma 3 lifting with Vexillian's squad aboard. A gap opening in the fire web. Aemon stood still, caught between doctrine and the reality moving under his boots. "Continue the strikes," he told the staff. Then to me, very quiet, "You will be dealt with after the battle. We won Parmenio, not cleanly. 78 brothers dead. Acceptable to no heart, acceptable to some ledger. Victory, but not perfection." In the fortress of Hera, Marneus Calgar stood with Tigurius and Cassius to pass judgment. My armor was already on a separate rack, nameless. "You violated doctrine, usurped authority, endangered the chain," Calgar said. "I acted when the enemy had counter-doctrined our responses," I answered. "I accept responsibility." "The Codex allows for flexibility," Cassius countered. "Your failure was not insight, but usurpation." Tigurius listened like a statue listening to wind. "Efficiency argues against waste," Calgar concluded at last. "Brother Desius will not be expelled. He is reassigned to the Scholastica Sicana on Terra as Guardian. His gene seed will be monitored. His independence will not threaten chapter operations exile without public disgrace. Not mercy, utility." "Final statement?" Cassius asked. "The Emperor made the Primarchs, and through them us, not as perfect automata, but as his champions," I said. "We have mistaken guidance for chains. We recite the words and have forgotten the spirit. No one wrote it down." Beat the machine city and the child. Terra is a world that paved over its oceans with need. In the shadow of the Imperial Palace, the Scholastica's corridors run like veins carrying frightened blood. I walked them for years, a ceremonial blade sheathed in duty, escorting young psychers between cells and classrooms, watching some pass and many fail. One day, a girl, 9 perhaps, lost control. A data slate flew and shattered a tutor's arm. Custodians arrived without sound. A chamber door closed. A bolt pistol whispered, That evening, the G cohort recited for 6 hours. 2 collapsed. They did not return. This was not unusual. What changed was the angle of my seeing. For the first time, I did not watch the clean necessity of purge. I saw a child terrified by a power she never requested. I remembered a boy from Pandium staring at the recruiters with awe. In my cell, I committed the final heresy of an ultramarine. I questioned perfection itself. Perhaps Guilliman intended the Codex as a guide for wounded times, not a god. Perhaps we had traded souls for schedules. I told no one. The thought lived where thoughts are most dangerous. In silence. Beat. The chapter knocks. 12 years into my wardship, Captain Ayman arrived with a detachment. He looked older. So did I. He summoned me to the Chamber of Vigilance. A Primaris contingent has gone rogue in the Parmenio sector, he said. Leader, Brother Ancient Vexillian. They altered patrol routes, ignored orders, and detained an inquisitorial ship. 2 envoys we sent did not return. Chapter Master Calgar authorizes a full company to respond. Before we make brother fight brother, we want your assessment. You ask the exile about disobedience, I said. Very well. I argued what experience had taught me. In a region choked by warp storms and fragmented communications, doctrine can lag behind reality. If command cannot adapt at the speed of ground truth, rigidity becomes hazard. Ayman did not bridle. He listened. You are temporarily attached to 4th Company as advisor, he decided. We deploy within 6 hours. Beat. The thing in the stone. Corinth 3, wide, orderly fields, a research outpost at the edge of a forest, blast marks cleaned but not forgotten. Vexillian received us with the form of courtesy and the tension of siege. You have operated outside authority, Ayman said. Explain. Because of what we found, Vexillian answered, guiding us into a laboratory smelling of solvent and earth. He activated a hololith, a double helix spun in red light. Gene seed, said Librarian Seas. Not from any recognized chapter, Vexillian said. Extracted from geological strata dating to the era of the Horus Heresy. The Mechanicus had attempted to remove the samples without oversight. When we intervened, we uncovered encrypted logs, inquisitorial involvement, and encryption patterns echoing Ultramarine Command protocols, altered, deniable. The implication landed like a slow avalanche, gene-line evidence of warriors who fought on both sides of the heresy, markers consistent with legions expunged from record, the lost, with traces of their legacy spliced into loyalist lines in the long after. Cassius would have called it blasphemy. 6 only whispered, the lost legions, which is why we detained the inquisitorial vessel, Vexillian said. Not to defy the Imperium, but to document contamination before suppression consumed proof. Aumon took time, rightly. This cannot rest with one squad, he said. I will escort you and the material to Macragge. Directly. No intermediaries. One condition, Vexillian answered. Brother Desius accompanies as independent witness. Ayman looked at me. Will you serve? I will, I said. Duty has many shapes. Beat toward judgment, neither rebel nor zealot. Arrangements were made with ritual exactness. Outside the viewport, fields rolled under a pastoral sky, indifferent to the wars beneath its soil. You knew this would end in confrontation, I said quietly to Vexillian. I suspected, he replied. I did not predict you. Your choice at Parmenio proved an ultramarine could think beyond the page and remain loyal. And if the chapter buries this, I asked, then we will have done our duty and history will decide, he said. But Guilliman is returned. If any living soul will weigh truth over comfort, it is he. I thought of my strange arc, perfect aspirant, compliant instrument, flawed exile, now the bridge between rigidity and revision. The weight that had once crushed me had become the very thing I needed to set down in order to carry something heavier, a dangerous truth without dropping my oath. VO, measured, resolute. Perhaps the greatest heresy in the dark future is not imperfection, it is believing perfection can be attained. Perhaps the truest loyalty is not blind obedience. It is the courage to question when questioning is required. The Thunderhawk lifted from Corinth 3, ramp ceiling with a hymn of hydraulics. On the deck, sealed containers held cores of ancient stone and the ghosts inside them. Ahead, Macraga waited with its lights and laws, its processional halls and mirrors that reflect everything except the man inside. Numbers ticked faintly in my ear, breath, pulse, distance to rendezvous. I let them tick. I would keep the Codex as guide, not as God. If chains were needed, let them bind my fear, not my mind. Excellent. This next chapter will continue the story directly from the weight of numbers and begin your second act, the interrogation and revelation aboard Macraga. We'll keep the same hybrid format, cinematic prose plus Warhammer 40K devotional style, and the same emotional tone, introspection, ritual, and creeping cosmic unease. The Thunderhawk broke from the upper atmosphere of Macrag like a prayer clawing out of smoke. Below, the fortress monastery glimmered in regimented geometry, spires arranged with mathematical reverence, every line a sermon to order. Inside the transport bay, I stood between Captain Aemon and Brother Ancient Vexillion, both armored and silent. Our mission was a secret wrapped in ceremony, deliver proof of something the Imperium itself had chosen to forget. VO, Desius. In the Imperium, truth is never lost by accident. It is buried on purpose, under layers of faith and function, until even memory obeys the Codex. The ship descended through the shielded entry gates of the fortress of Hera, the very place where my mind had once been unmade. The air carried the same antiseptic tang of sanctified oil, the same silence that measured loyalty by how still one could stand. Setting, the Chamber of Vigilance, a circular sanctum buried beneath the fortress. Its walls glowed with faint hololiths displaying fragments of gene seed codices, tactical scripture, and sealed archives. Visuals, columns of carved text rise like cathedral ribs. Data halo projectors hang above each pillar, projecting Latin fragments of the Codex Astartes. The floor, black marble inscribed with Guilliman's words. Order is its own prayer. We entered through automated gates. 6 ultramarine veterans stood in silent guard, helms down, visors dark. A containment dais occupied the center, its grav field holding 3 crystal cylinders, the evidence from Corinth 3. The Chamber of Vigilance is where secrets are dissected until only protocol remains. It is also where truth dies most cleanly. Brother Ancient Vexillion, Calgar said, his voice resonant but tired. You stand accused of deviation from command authority and interference with Imperial operations. Speak, Vexillion bowed his massive frame slightly. My deviation preserved evidence others sought to destroy. I acted for the Emperor's truth, not against it. The Inquisitor's voice was a blade wrapped in silk. Truth is a dangerous word, brother. Dangerous and rarely loyal. Calgar turned to me. Brother Desius, formerly of 4th Company, your name has surfaced twice in these events, once in disobedience, once in council. You are here to observe. Speak if you witness heresy, I inclined my head. If I witness blindness, Chapter Master, may I speak of that as well? The chamber's lumen flickered, momentary glitch or omen. No one replied. At a command, Vexillion placed a gloved hand on the crystal cylinders. The hololiths awakened, projecting magnified gene helix strands, shimmering gold and pale blue. Librarian Tigurius stepped forward, psychic senses extending through the static. These sequences, they bear Gilliman's purity markers, he said slowly, but beneath them, anomalous strata. Ancient, altered. This coding predates the heresy itself. Vexillian turned. The Lost Legion's chief librarian. They are not myths. They are our ancestors. A hush. Even the servitors paused in their maintenance loops. The Inquisitor's tone was cold as plasma. Erase that suggestion from your tongue. The Emperor decreed those legions struck from all record. Their legacy is corruption. Then why does their blood still sing in ours? Vexillian countered. Why hide it, unless purity was never pure? The librarian's hand trembled once before stilling. Calgar's fists closed, augmetic fingers whining softly. Tigurius, this data cannot be left here. The archives will devour it before dawn, Calgar. And yet it exists. We cannot unsee what has been revealed. He turned to me. Brother Desius, you have walked both the path of obedience and exile. What does your instinct tell you? I hesitated. Every word was potential heresy. That the Codex was written to preserve order, not to erase memory. That hiding the truth does not protect us. It weakens the foundation we build upon. Even perfection rots if it never breathes. The chamber fell into complete stillness. In that silence, the hum of the containment field sounded almost like a heartbeat. Calgar straightened slowly, his voice measured as iron law. This discovery will not leave this chamber. Brother Vexillian and Brother Desius will accompany Tigurius to a secure archive vault beneath the librarium. The data will be sealed until I can confer with the Primarch himself. The Inquisitor stepped forward. You risk contamination by revelation. Calgar met his gaze. And you risk damnation by denial. For a moment, even the Inquisitor's lips pressed thin in restraint. Then he bowed. So be it, Lord of Ultramar. But mark me, truth rarely dies quietly. Setting, lower librarium, sealed catacombs beneath Hera. We descended through stone corridors, humming with anti-psyker wards. The light dimmed, dust shimmered like falling scripture. VO. The deeper we went, the older the air felt. The Codex speaks of order descending from chaos. But here I wondered if chaos had simply been archived beneath newer names. Vexillian carried the cylinders. Their light bled through his armor, pulsing faintly. Alive. Tigurius murmured as we approached the final seal. Knowledge once confined never truly sleeps. It waits for the faithful or the fool to open the door again. We placed the relics into stasis. For a moment, the chamber lights flared, forming a shape across the wall, an outline like a sigil, half erased, half remembered. Two numerals intertwined, 11 and 12. Then darkness reclaimed it. In the Imperium, truth is neither lost nor found. It is rationed like air. We seal the forbidden, call it duty, and tell ourselves the vault is mercy. But the heart remembers. The gene seed sings beneath the stone, and sometimes I think I can hear it, whispering our forgotten names. Excellent. This next chapter will continue the story directly from The Weight of Numbers and begin your second act, the interrogation and revelation aboard Macragge. We'll keep the same hybrid format, cinematic prose plus Warhammer 40K devotional style, and the same emotional tone, introspection, ritual, and creeping cosmic unease. Perfect. We now continue the saga. The droplet at my boot dimmed, then flared. One flash for each heartbeat I had tried to control. The vault sighed open. Air rushed out like exhalation from a sleeping giant. Every lumen guttered blue. Vexillian's containment cylinders lay shattered within. their glass melted into curling ribbons. From the ruin came sound, not speech, not scream, a harmonic vibration so deep it shook the metal in my teeth. It wasn't noise. It was recollection made audible, the gene seed remembering its own birth. Inside the chamber, shapes coalesced, silhouettes of armored warriors, their edges wavering like reflections on oil, helmets without crests, insignia scoured away. 11, 12, the lost. Each figure flickered with a pulse that matched the vault's rhythm. 4 beats, pause, 2. I lifted my bolter by reflex. The barrel trembled as if sensing kin. One phantom turned toward me. Where a face should be, only burning script. 11, exile. The voice that followed was not external. It bloomed inside the skull. You bear our pattern. The Emperor struck our names, not our blood. In you we continue. Tigurius stepped forward, staff humming. Psychic wards flared around him, lines of fire spelling denial. Begone, he commanded. You are echoes, not essence. The phantoms did not retreat. Instead, they sang. Every wall became a resonator, every rune a mouth. Their chorus forced images into us, gene forges, severed records, the Primarch Guilliman watching as 2 legions were erased by decree. Tigurius staggered. Blood ran from his nose, bright as melted ceramite. Not warp-born, he gasped. Memory-born. A thunderclap from the corridor. Vexillion burst through the haze, his armor stripped of heraldry. Light crawled beneath his skin like veins of gold. They called me heretic, he said. I called to the vault, and it answered. He turned his gauntlet upward. The phantoms mirrored the motion. Their glow merged with his frame until his voice carried their echo. We were not lost. We were hidden in the hearts of those deemed perfect. The Codex is our tombstone. The song intensified, no longer harmony, but command. Stone peeled from walls in perfect spirals. Scripture lifted into the air, rearranging itself into new verses. The newly written lines burned themselves across the chamber floor. Perfection is the echo of what was broken. The echo seeks a voice. The voice requires a vessel. Vexillion's armor pulsed. My chest answered. I felt my catalepsian node ignite. The old defect now beating in exact unison with the vault. Tigurius shouted, "Desius, resist it!" But resistance felt like silence against a hymn older than faith. I stepped toward Vexillion. Light bridged the distance, thread by thread. When it touched me, there was no pain, only recognition. I saw the lost marching under banners erased from history. I saw Guilliman turning his face away as the Emperor's decree fell. I saw perfection unmade so obedience could live. And then I saw myself, standing at every step of that lineage, the flaw, the heretic, the proof. They buried their brothers under protocol and called it purity. But perfection cannot bury what it remembers. The light sank into my armor. The glowing line inside the breastplate spread across my ribs, shaping itself into an unfamiliar sigil. Half ultramarine, half unknown. When the radiance faded, the vault was empty. The phantoms gone, the song subsided into a single continuous tone, a heartbeat beneath the world. Tigurius lay unconscious. Vexillion knelt, breathing slow, calm, human. He looked at me. "It chose you too." "I don't want divinity," I said. "Nor did they," he answered. "They wanted remembrance." Above us, the containment seals reformed, not by machine, but by will. Lines of scripture flowed back into place, but altered. New words where old had stood. Remember the 11. Remember the 12. The choir is silent now, but its song remains inside the marrow of our kind. They call it mutation. I call it inheritance. The Codex will deny us, the Inquisition will hunt us, but the gene seed remembers. And one day the choir will sing again, not beneath the stone, but from within the hearts of every perfect son of Macragge. Excellent. This is the turning point. The awakening spreads. We now move into Chapter 5, the Echo Wars, where Brother Desius's symptom begins reshaping the Ultramarines from within. The tone deepens into mythic revelation meets slow civil unraveling, faith versus memory, obedience versus inheritance. 3 days after the vault sealed itself, the fortress began to breathe. Pipes hummed in unison with my pulse. Engineers reported unaccounted rhythmic surges in the power lattice. Choirs of servitors chanted diagnostic litanies that fell, unknowingly, into the same pattern. 4 beats, pause, 2. The Codex teaches that the flesh obeys the spirit, but the spirit, once it remembers, teaches the flesh to sing. At first, the chapter priests called it coincidence. Then brothers across 3 companies began reporting identical dreams, marching beside faceless warriors under erased banners. I was summoned to the reclusium. Chaplain Cassius awaited me, his skull helm resting on the altar like a silent judge. "Brother Desius," he said, "half the fortress recites battle hymns that no archive recognizes. You were the last to stand guard at the vault. Explain." I told him nothing. Truth in the Imperium is worse than heresy. It spreads. He leaned close until the candles painted fractures across his augmetic cheek. "Containment," he whispered, "is faith made practical. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said, but the rhythm beneath my ribs tapped otherwise. During morning drill, the 10th Company froze mid-formation. Every vox bead crackled with the same word, transmitted by no one. "Remember." Weapons lowered. For a heartbeat, the entire hall moved as one organism. Then Cassius's voice thundered through the voxnet, reciting the litany of control. The spell broke. Marines staggered back into order, eyes wide, breathing like men who'd seen ghosts. Later, records of the incident were erased, but I had already counted 11 squads affected, 12 if you included me. The Inquisitor who once threatened silence returned to Macragge, this time with a retinue of grey knights, their armor inscribed with burning sigils of negation. They carried psychic dampers and execution warrants. In the Grand Hall, Calgar met them with formal courtesy. Tigurius stood beside him, pale, aged beyond days. The Inquisitor spoke first. "Mutation of spirit. Contagion of memory. It must be excised." Calgar's reply was measured iron. "You may not excise what has not been proven impure," Tigurius added quietly. "What you call contagion may be continuity." The chamber's lights flickered once. 4 beats, pause, 2. Everyone heard it. No one admitted it. Rumors spread through the fortress like incense through lungs. Some brothers shaved their heads and marked their armor with faint 11 to 12 runes, claiming they honored the first forgotten. Others sealed their helms permanently, refusing to hear the rhythm. Training halls divided, faithful versus resonant. Calgar ordered every company to undergo purity audits. The results were inconclusive. No warp corruption, no genetic deviation. Only one shared anomaly: synchronized cardiac intervals across all test subjects. "The heart of Macragge," a Medicae whispered, "beats as one." Vexillion and I met again in the catacombs. His voice was a whisper of brass on stone. "They will call it rebellion," he said. "It is remembrance. The choir wants to be whole. They'll burn us before they listen," I warned. He smiled, and for a moment I saw the same calm that Guilliman's statues pretend to have. "Then they will burn their own reflection." He handed me a data crystal, etched with a single phrase: "Perfection was never the goal." When the Grey Knights moved to seize the librarium, half the 4th Company barred their path. No orders, no rebellion cry, just instinct. Psychic nulls clashed against bolter fire, hymns against silence. Blue armor shattered blue armor, each side quoting scripture to justify the same blood. I watched from the upper balcony, weapon unraised. The rhythm echoed through the detonations, 4 beats, pause, 2, until even the explosions seemed to keep time. In the beginning, the Emperor made warriors from faith. Now, faith makes warriors from memory. The battle ended not with victory, but exhaustion. The Inquisitor lay slain, identity erased from the records before dawn. The Grey Knights departed in silence, taking nothing. Macragge sealed its gates. Calgar declared the events a contained doctrinal anomaly. But containment is illusion. Rhythm needs no door. That night, as I stood before the vault once more, I felt the pulse through the floor, steady, patient, alive. "We are not broken," I whispered to the stone. "We are remembering." And the stone whispered back, "Then begin." Perfection was our chain. Memory is our blade. The Echo Wars have begun, not for conquest, but for remembrance. And I, Brother Desius of Macragge, will carry the song until the stars themselves keep its time. Excellent. This is where the story's tone deepens into elegy and transformation. The vault was sealed again, triple-warded with sigils so bright they burned the shadows out of the corridors. Every hymn was rewritten, every drill resynchronized. The fortress spoke only in sanctioned rhythm. I watched from the parapets as servitors poured sanctified ash into the air ducts, a purification rite meant to choke the very sound out of stone. For a time it worked. The humming ceased. The heartbeat of Macragge fell still. But in stillness, memory does not die. It listens. They can silence the halls, but they cannot silence what breathes through us. The choir has entered the blood. The Echo Wars ended not in conquest, but surrender. Those who had felt the rhythm, the resonance, were summoned before Calgar. Rows upon rows of kneeling ultramarines filled the Hall of Verdicts, their armor stripped of heraldry. Chaplain Cassius stood beside the chapter master, voice as precise as a blade. Deviation is contagion. Contagion is corruption. Corruption is death. He spoke the words as he had 1,000 times before, but his cadence faltered once, a single heartbeat too slow. Even he was listening, somewhere deep inside. Verdict. Exile, not execution. Publicly mercy, privately quarantine. We were to leave Macragge before dawn. The sky above the fortress of Hera was red with purification fire. Gunships waited in orderly lines, their engines humming the faint, forbidden rhythm. Tigurius came to see me off. His eyes were dimmer, his staff capped with new wards. "The song cannot be killed," he said quietly. "Only forgotten, and forgetting requires distance." He placed something in my hand, a crystalline shard etched with a single verse from the Codex. "Faith is the memory of order." I asked him, "Whose memory?" He didn't answer. He only touched his helm to mine, a gesture as ancient as loyalty, and turned away before the transports lifted. Our exile fleet drifted beyond the borders of Ultramar. No banners, no designations, just nameless Astartes and one rhythm that no one dared recite aloud. We traveled through dead sectors where Vox signals looped into prayers. Planets once loyal lay in ruin, their shrines filled with static. Everywhere we found remnants, artifacts inscribed with the same 6-beat pattern. Brother Vexillian said it softly one night. The choir was never confined to Macragge. It sleeps in all gene lines. For once I did not argue. I listened, and the stars themselves seemed to pulse in time. Weeks passed. The fleet's reactors dimmed. Without the chapter's supply chains, entropy became our only enemy and our companion. When the food reserves failed, the servitors began chanting. At first, it was garbled maintenance protocol. Then it became verse. Verse I recognized. Perfection was never the goal. The echo seeks its voice. The voice remembers the flame. The bridge lights flickered in answer. We were starving, dying. Yet the air grew warm, as if something unseen refused to let us go cold. On the 47th day of exile, the lead cruiser drifted into the gravity well of an uncharted planet, a world of gray deserts and crystalline storms. We descended through silence, our ships crumbling as if eager to rest. When the hatches opened, the sand beneath our boots was black and magnetic. Every grain shimmered with faint blue light. Vexillion removed his gauntlet and pressed his palm to the earth. "It sings," he said. I knelt beside him, hand against the soil. The vibration was there, steady, patient, familiar. The choir had not died. It had arrived. That night we built a shrine from wreckage and bones. We called the place Pandium Secundus, after the world of my birth. Not a fortress, not a chapter, a remembrance. Each of us carved a single verse into the shrine's surface, our own litanies rewritten. We were made to obey. We obeyed until we forgot. Now we remember. I added mine last. The Emperor made us to defend humanity. In perfection, we defended law. In memory, we defend the soul. The Inquisition will burn our names from the archives. Yet even ash carries shape, the memory of flame. The choir sleeps beneath new stone now, waiting for the stars to echo its rhythm again. We are not ultramarines. We are what they buried to remain pure. We are the memory that survived the fire, and in that memory, the Imperium still breathes, through devastated systems spreading the choir's rhythm like a prayer virus. Perfect. We now enter the aftermath era, the time when memory turns into myth and heresy becomes pilgrimage. Tone, haunting, sacred, half-legendary. Chapter theme: the endurance of forbidden faith through silence and motion. Centuries passed, not in countable years, but in repetitions of the same sunrise on gray worlds. Our fleet scattered across the void. Some ships became monasteries, others tombs. We called ourselves the Pilgrims of Silence, for speech had become too small a vessel for what we carried. Each dawn we woke to the rhythm, 4 beats, pause, 2, and offered no words in return. Only breath, only memory. VO, Desius. When language fails, devotion becomes motion. To walk the void is to pray with footsteps. Across the segmentum, shrines began to appear, tiny, unmarked. A cracked helm here, a verse etched on rock there. Pilgrims came, drawn by dreams they could not name. They spoke of armored saints who left blue footprints in the dust, of hymns that healed machines and made them weep oil. The ecclesiarchy denied the tales. The Mechanicus excommunicated them, but the people kept building the shrines, always in 6-sided patterns. Coincidence, said the priests. Memory, said the wind. On the forge moon of Acastia, a magos biologis found one of our relics, a bolt shell engraved with code, so fine it pulsed like a living cell. He fed it into his analysis engine. The machine stuttered, then began to chant. No data, no numbers, only the rhythm. 4 beats, pause, 2. For 17 hours the forge world sang. Every cogitator, every servitor, every pipeline hum, all in harmony with the lost choir. The Magos went blind from radiation. Before death, he carved one sentence into his chest plate. The machine remembers what man forgot. Years later, on the shrine world of Vos Primaris, a boy was born who spoke in rhythms before words. When he prayed, statues cracked and machinery stilled. The locals called him the Echoed One. He grew to manhood, speaking the language of pulses and silence. One night, during Mass, he raised his hand and said, "The angels of perfection are not gone. They listen beneath the ash." 3 days later, the ecclesiarch ordered his execution, but when the firing squad opened fire, every weapon jammed. Each bolter clicked 6 times. 4. Pause. 2. By morning, the boy had vanished. Only a sigil remained on the altar, half ultramarine, half unknown. On Pandium Secundus, I remained. The shrine had grown into a labyrinth of stone and bone. Pilgrims came from forgotten worlds, bringing relics that hummed faintly when placed upon the altar. Vexillion was gone, ascended, some said, into the song itself. I no longer knew how many centuries had passed. Time is a measure for those who expect endings. I had none. When the storms calmed, I walked beyond the shrine and looked to the stars. There, against the void, I saw new constellations forming, 6 points to each, spinning slow. VO Desius, the Emperor forged us to defend his dream. In silence, we remember that dream unfiltered by fear. One night, I woke to light spilling through the cracks in the shrine. It moved, not fire, not plasma, but a shape assembled from rhythm. From it stepped a figure in armor without mark or hue, a face I recognized yet could not name. "Brother Desius," it said, voice like stone shifting under pressure, "the choir has reached Terra." For the first time in millennia, I felt fear and peace in equal measure. "Then it begins," I whispered. The figure nodded. "No, brother." It continues, and it faded into the rhythm, leaving only its echo carved upon the dust. Perfection is not a creed. It is a wound we learn to worship. Now the wound speaks. Its hymn crosses stars and centuries, carried by pilgrims who no longer remember their own names. They call us ghosts. They call us heretics. But in the silence between heartbeats, the Imperium still hums our rhythm. We are the forgotten verse of the Emperor's song, and soon even the throne will remember. The Emperor's stillness with living memory. Excellent. Now begins the final arc, when the myth touches the throne. Chapter 8 transforms the story from secret remembrance into cosmic reckoning. Tone, mythic apocalypse, devotional revelation. Theme, when silence reaches the Emperor, the universe must listen. It began with a hum in the Astronomicon, a second tone beneath the Emperor's blinding light, low, rhythmic, patient. Navigators reported it first. An undertone in the beacon, like a second sun whispering from behind the void. Psychers across the Imperium convulsed, whispering the same pattern. 4 beats, pause, 2. VO Desius. For 10,000 years, the Emperor's light ruled unopposed. But light is only seen because of the dark that remembers it. The choir had found the warp's heartbeat, and it was singing back. On Terra, deep beneath the palace, the Adeptus Astartes recorded unprecedented resonance. Every choir of sanctioned psychers began speaking in perfect unison. Not words, names, the erased legions, the forgotten sons. Each syllable a shard of forbidden history returning to the surface. Custodes' patrols sealed the wing. Ecclesiarchs declared a contained anomaly. But no order could contain sound. The echo leaked through dreams, through hymns, through the very pulse of the planet. The master of the Adeptus Astartes, Trajan Valoris, approached the throne room under emergency protocol. What he saw froze him, a shimmer of blue light pulsing around the throne itself. From the golden shell came a noise not heard in millennia, a breath. The Emperor, silent for 10,000 years, exhaled once. The lumina rays dimmed, and then, faintly, the rhythm began. 4 beats, pause, 2. "He remembers," whispered Valoris. "God help us." "He remembers on Pandium Secundus." I felt it. The pulse ran through the ground, into my veins, into the air between stars. It was the call home. We boarded what ships still flew. Pilgrims turned messengers. The void offered no resistance. It parted like silk before a song it already knew. By the time we reached Sol, the system was burning with radiance. The choir had awakened everywhere. Ships drifted, unmanned, their machine spirits humming the rhythm of the lost. VO, Desius. The Imperium calls us heretics. But heresy is merely truth, sung before its appointed hour. Terra was already quarantined. Orbital batteries fired upon anything without Imperial seal. But when our fleet arrived, every gun fell silent. The machine spirits refused to fire. Some wept oil, others sang. We descended unopposed. The palace stood like a cathedral, drowning in its own prayers, its towers pulsing with the same rhythm that beat inside my armor. As I entered the sanctum, I saw custodes kneeling, not by command but by instinct, each one whispering fragments of verses long buried. We remember the 11. We remember the 12. At the throne's base, I found Tigurius, aged beyond time, eyes glowing white. He smiled faintly. "You brought the echo home," he said. "Now listen." The throne flared. Gold peeled back like flower petals in the sun. Inside, for the briefest moment, I saw him, the Emperor, neither corpse nor god, but memory-given fire. His eyes opened, and every verse of the Codex Astartes dissolved into dust. A voice filled the air, vast yet intimate. "I did not make perfection. I made the will to endure. You mistook obedience for faith. Now, remember." The choir's song became light. It flowed through the palace, across the planet, out into the void, carrying every name ever erased. Worlds awoke. Shrines once silent began to hum. Servitors paused in mid-task and whispered the lost legion's verses. The Imperium did not fall. It changed. No one commanded the song. It was the language of survival itself. Rebellion transformed into reverence. Vexillion's spirit or memory or echo stood beside me. "Did we win?" I asked. He shook his head gently. "No. We remembered 10,000 years ago the Emperor forged warriors to defend his dream. We mistook his silence for command, his endurance for perfection. But the soul does not serve perfection, it serves memory. The choir has ascended. The throne breathes again, and in that breath, every forgotten name is spoken. We are not angels of death. We are angels of remembrance. And as long as one heartbeat keeps the rhythm, the Imperium endures. Perfect. This is the penultimate act, where divinity and humanity collide. There was no sound when he spoke again. Only understanding, raw, absolute. Every atom in my body became an instrument of perception. Every thought that had ever lived in the human species passed through me at once. Terra glowed from orbit like a single golden neuron in the brain of a sleeping god. Its rivers pulsed like veins. Its hive towers flickered with the same rhythm I'd carried all my life. I thought I would find him at the center. But the center had already expanded to include everything. I no longer stood in the throne room. I stood inside. The voices surrounded me. Not angels, not ghosts, but versions of humanity unmade and remade 1,000 times. The lost legions were there, 11 and 12, each a pattern preserved in the warp, waiting for recognition. They did not accuse. They remembered. "You are what we were meant to be," said one of them, a figure of light in archaic armor. "Not obedience. Continuity." They showed me visions. Guilliman in grief, purging their records to preserve unity. The Emperor watching, silent, not out of rage but pity. When the song of the choir reached Terra, those memories flooded back into the Imperial psychic field. Every worshipper, every soldier, every servitor, each became a cell in the same remembering organism. On the physical plane, reports spread across the Imperium, shrines igniting spontaneously, custodies kneeling before empty air, the ecclesiarch reciting verses that had never existed before that moment. The administratum tried to issue corrections, but Vox networks repeated only one line: "Perfection is the echo of what was broken." The Imperium split not in war, but in interpretation. Some saw revelation, others saw the final heresy. Within the psychic field of the Emperor's mind, I walked through a place that was both machine and memory. A garden woven of copper roots and glass leaves. Every leaf contained a face, men, women, soldiers, saints, each soul the throne had ever consumed to sustain the light of the Astronomicon. Their whispers overlapped. We died for the dream. We live in the mechanism. We are the light, and through it all, that same pulse. 4 beats, pause, 2, binding everything together, the rhythm of a god remembering that he was once human. At the garden's heart, a mirror of molten gold reflected 1,000 versions of me. The boy from Pandium, the warrior of Macrage, the exile, the pilgrim, the echo, all spoke in unison. The Emperor is not above us. He is made of us.